Welcome to the Driving for Dollars podcast, the place to be for house flipping tips, tricks, and advice that's raw and unfiltered, but works. Learn to generate more leads and deals through our marketing expertise. Now, let's get into the show. What is up, everybody out there in listener land? This is the Driving for Dollars podcast, episode number 2. Hopefully you guys have subscribed to the show. You listened to episode number 1, so you know what this show is going to be all about. But this is number 2, second episode. So we're going to dive into some actual strategy stuff this week. I'm out driving around myself right now. I'm actually checking on one of our projects that we bought a couple weeks ago that was a actual Driving for Dollars lead. And so I want to talk about that, but also kind of some strategy stuff. Once you build your Driving for Dollars list, how you can then market to it, right? So one of the big things that most people have done over the course of time when utilizing Driving for Dollars, and the reason why it's the biggest pain in the butt is because you'd have to drive around, you jot down the addresses on a yellow piece of paper or whatever with a pad, and then you go back, you look up that information, and all you can really get in looking up is who owns it and where they live or where their mailing address is. And so we created our Driving for Dollars app that initially just did that, right? It streamlined that process, which was very simple. Now, recently, as of this week, if you guys are listening to the show when it came out, the app now provides you a number of different data points beyond that. So you get who owns it, what their mailing address is, you get when they bought it, how much they bought it for, which is an important thing if you're trying to qualify the lead. If somebody just bought it a year ago and we've been in a hyper-inflation type environment in terms of value of real estate, there probably isn't a whole lot of room for them to be able to sell it to you at a discount and for you to be able to do what you need to do to it and then flip it back out at a retail price and make money. So that's obviously an important thing. So who they are, what their mailing address is, what they bought it for, when they bought it, of course, whether it's owner-occupied or non-owner-occupied, that's an important thing. And then, of course, we also give you the mortgage information so you know how much they owe on the property, which is something kind of a secondarily important thing, but important nonetheless. Now, with that data that you can get through using the app to build your list, I want to talk about how to use that data to then market to these people and what it is that we do in my own business as well. Because right now we're in a pretty competitive environment. Well, some markets are pretty competitive. Other markets are like super uber competitive in terms of, people jousting for deals, trying to find sellers, trying to connect with sellers. And so the old way of basically sending out, 10 letters, if you do Driving for Dollars and you create a little list of like 10 properties and you mail those people with yellow letters, back in 2012, you'd probably get 3 or 4 responses. Nowadays, you send 10 letters, you're lucky if you get 1 from it, just because there's so much more noise in people's mailboxes and just so many more people trying to buy houses. So that's why we had to expand the amount of data that the app provides for you. But once you have that data, now it's about using it, right? It's about using it to better your marketing and to improve the different types of marketing that you're doing. So with the data that you get from using the app and building your custom Driving for Dollars list, first thing is obviously the name of who owns it and their mailing address. So mailing them is a must, right? That's a foundation in terms of creating lead flow for your business. And so what we do is we generally start off with some form of a handwritten letter that looks a little more personal and kind of explains who we are, why we're interested in their property, and it's meant to grab their attention. Generally, we'll mail them a couple times fairly frequently initially to kind of get them to remember who we are, and then we'll kind of space it out after that. Now, if you want to mail, like, let's say, a print letter or postcards after the first mailing, just kind of as a reminder mailing once you've kind of made the impact with your first maybe more expensive, more elaborate marketing piece, then that's probably fine to do. That way you're not spending too much money in your marketing budget while you're still kind of staying relevant in the mind of the seller. But mailing is something that we always do. And then we continue to mail these people monthly, quarterly, depending on how much we're going after a particular area, a particular list. But we'll continue marketing to these people on an ongoing basis until they call us and say, hey, we want to sell you the house, or they call us and say we sold the house, or they call us and say go to hell, don't mail me anymore, and then we'll take them off the list. But we continue to mail them, and so that's something that you need to make sure that you do. Marketing is an ongoing action in your business, and continuing to mail your list, warm them up, get them familiar with who you are, get them familiar with what it is that your company does, and ultimately get them familiar with your brand. Because at the end of the day, people do business with brands that they recognize more than not. And so the more that you hit these people, with the mail starting out, the more they recognize your brand, and they develop a comfort level with seeing your brand. And at a certain point when they're ready to sell, if it fits, if they have the type of property that, you're looking to buy, which most of the time is the case when you're building a Driving for Dollars list, they'll ultimately end up contacting you in some fashion. So mailing is the foundation of generating consistent lead flow for your real estate investing business, and that's how we do the mail side of it. Now, with the other stuff that you get, so now you get the phone number too, which is a big thing when it comes to marketing. A lot of the other data points that we provide is like ancillary supporting data to help qualify the lead. But the other big piece of information that we give you now in our app is the phone number. And so with the phone number, it's very, very important that you utilize that to its fullest, because then you're getting tremendous value by getting that type of data. And so with the phone number, there's two things that you can do, or that we do in our business. There's probably a gazillion things you can do, but the two main things that we do in our business is, number one is slide dial, right? So we set up a system so that we basically mail people, and then about 4 or 5 days later, we slide dial them. And that slide dial is basically a message that goes directly to their voicemail inbox. It doesn't ring, so it's ringless voicemail, and we use a slide dial system. And so when that happens, we leave a message that basically references the mail piece that we sent them prior and says something to the effect of, we've got another project in your area. And so we're trying to give them a reason why it is that we're contacting them beyond the fact that they just have a house. And so the reasons are generally, hey, I'm following up to a mail piece that I sent you. And number two is, we're doing other projects in the area. I noticed your house, and that's why we mailed you to begin with, and I'm hoping to connect with you. So slide dialing is a very great way to push the envelope in terms of getting them to reach out to you and start a conversation really about potentially buying their house and build that relationship, get them familiar with you. And so if they call back, at that point they're probably interested, but it's kind of an additional nudge beyond the mail piece to get them to say, hey, I might be interested in selling. Now, there's going to be some people that call you back and tell you to F off or whatever, because that's just, the way they react to somebody leaving them a voicemail of something they're not interested in anyway. And maybe they took offense to your letter because they think that their house is in like perfect retail condition. And you and I both know by looking at it that it's a complete piece of shit. So that's possible. You might get some negative feedback on some of those slide dial type messages, but you get negative feedback from mailing too. It's just part of the game. You mail enough people, you slide dial enough people, you're going to run across some crazies in the world, and that's just what happens. So just be prepared for that. But overall, it's a great cost-effective way to increase your lead flow, and kind of a secondary way to market the leads that you've already generated. So the other thing you can do is cold call, right? So, slide dial is probably something to do that, to the entire list. But what I would do is really chisel down the list to like the A++ leads that maybe are prime redevelopment leads, or maybe they're like prime fix and flip leads. Like they are just ideal, and based on when they bought it, based on how much they owe, because you can determine that information from the data that's provided in the app, those would be like your A+ leads. Now you can start cold calling these people. And so with cold calling, generally, if there's not an immediate motivation, it's more about just getting on the phone with them, building a relationship, and that way, if you do that enough, at a certain point, timing is going to line up, and these people are going to get to the point where they want to sell for whatever reason. And now that you've already built that relationship with them via mail and via an actual conversation over the phone from cold calling, now they're going to be plenty willing to call you back and continue that conversation to potentially sell the house to you at some point in the future. We just had a lead that called in yesterday. We mailed them, we slide dialed them, and we actually were going to cold call them, but they called us from the slide dial. We didn't even have to go to cold call. And he just wanted to talk to us about the fact that he's maybe looking to sell in probably the next 6 months to a year, but it's a prime redevelopment piece of property. It's got a single family house on there right now. It's zoned for higher density townhomes or for commercial. So it's like the perfect redevelopment type lead. But we started the conversation. We started building rapport with him. And now when he's ready, he'll call us back. And so look at cold calling as a way to kind of force their hand in creating a relationship with you. Now, some may just right off be like, well, I'd be interested in selling, and you can continue the conversation. But look at cold calling as just a way to force conversation so that you can force building a relationship with somebody. So at the point that they are willing to sell, they've already built that relationship with you, and they feel much more comfortable reaching out and saying, all right, it's time, let's get this process going. So those are a couple ways that you can do it that are very cost effective in addition to your mailing. Some of the other things that you can use or do with the data that's provided in our Driving for Dollars app is IP targeting. So you can basically take people's names and their property addresses, you can look up their IP address, and you can run ads to them for basically impression ads via IP targeting, which is fairly inexpensive to do, but it's kind of freaky that you can do that, but you can. So that's kind of brand awareness. You can run some banner ads and things like that that have a call to action on them and with a link to your website so they can fill out a form. But you can run IP targeting to these people. You can also upload who they are and where they live to Facebook, and you can run Facebook ads to them as well. And so Facebook then allows you to custom target these people. You can create video ads, you can create call to action, image ads, you can do all kinds of things to target these people specifically within Facebook, as well as IP targeting. So those are kind of the more higher cost ways to continually market these people with the data that you get from the app. But if you want to limit your costs, you could always just do the slide dial, cold calling, and mailing. But if you have more room in your marketing budget, or you want to be more aggressive about going after these people, you can kind of go after them in a variety of different ways: mail, phone, and then IP targeting, Facebook, and I think Google has a new thing coming out where you can target them via Google now too with their name and address. So there's all kinds of things that you can do. Maybe I'll do a show on that here in the future. But those are kind of the main ways that we target people with the data that comes from the app. So you use the app, you build a fantastic, highly targeted list. It's a great asset for your business, and then you layer your marketing to those people so you can build your brand, your brand awareness, and ultimately get them to the point where they're ready to or comfortable to reach back out, contact you, and get the conversation going so that you can then hopefully buy their house and get a leg up on your competition. So those are the things I want to talk about in this episode. It's just how to use the data from the app in order to effectively market for more leads and more deals so that you can beat out your competition, and ultimately you can be a better investor than the next guy. So hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 2. I'll be back here in episode 3 very shortly as I'm driving around doing some more driving for dollars and checking on projects here in my own company here in Portland, Oregon. So I'll see you guys on the next show.